So according from to an article from the 2005 American Control Conference, we have dropped over 100 times in hydrocarbon emissions per year, right? Per mile, really. So what changed that? It was the Clean Air Act of 1966, over 59 years ago, implemented by the Environmental Protection Agency. And since then, our emission standards have just gotten more strict, more severe. And I really question why. So, as a new driver and apprentice mechanic living in Summit County, I have experienced difficulty in making vehicles meet smog checks, and also understanding why we should compromise on power and reliability to meet emission standards when other groups aren't. So, start off, vehicles become less reliable when you add more systems to it. You add more things that can fail. Statistically, more things are going to fail and cause a vehicle to be less reliable. So, according to an article from Tag's Clinic, a popular mechanic shop in California, there are 5 common failure points in your emission systems. There's your oxygen sensors, which can cause a vehicle to run inconsistently. There's catalytic converters, which can be stolen or damaged and cause a vehicle to fail a smog check, therefore causing you to fail your licensing. There are EGR systems, which can cause a vehicle to run inconsistently when they're failing. Same with EVAP systems. And then your air-to-fuel ratio imbalance can actually cause severe damage to your engine. So when you're adding more of these systems that can fail and cause damage to your other systems that are more important to the vehicle functioning and running, that vehicle becomes less reliable, which is bad because loss of transportation can ruin somebody's life. It could cost somebody their job. It could cost somebody medical care. It could cost somebody a lot of things. So why should we waste time making vehicles less reliable for emissions controls? So on that front, why should we make our vehicles less powerful to meet emissions regulations, right? Just by deleting and tuning a 2017 to 2023 6.6 Duramax Chevy engine, you gain over almost 150 horsepower. That's a lot. That could take a whole nother vehicle off the road. You don't need 2 Duramaxes in that case. You just need the one truck, which is going to be putting out less. Even a tuned, deleted one is going to be putting out less emissions than 2 trucks. So why should we make our vehicles less powerful and therefore less efficient, cost us more money to maintain, and be more difficult to use logistically because you now have to worry about having 2 drivers, 2 vehicles, 2 places to get, 2 insurances, and all those wonderful problems that are associated with that. But you're also putting more out environmentally. So why should we meet emission standards when we can clearly do more, function more, haul more, and be more effective as drivers when we don't? And that raises the argument for electric vehicles. Some people say that electric vehicles are our future. Quite frankly, I don't think they're our future, and I don't think they're going to help us out with our environmental problems as we have them now. And there's one reason for that. Tankers. The cross-ocean tankers produce 7.1 gigatons per year. This is according to the Bureau of Transportation Statistics. In 2010 alone, they produced 7.1 gigatons of CO2 output per year, or over the year. According to an article from Ichigyao, there were only 40,512 tankers that year, which means each one produced roughly 175,000 tons of CO2 per year per tanker. So each vehicle in that sorry, give me a second. Come on. According to that information from the Bureau of Transport Statistics again, each of those tankers traveled roughly 75 to 200,000 miles a year, which means they produced, on average, roughly a ton per mile, if not more. So each electric vehicle emits roughly 1.5 tons of CO2 per 10,000 miles. I used an EPA emissions calculator to calculate that my truck outputs roughly 6 to 8 tons per 10,000 miles. So I'm roughly 4 times as bad as an electric vehicle is for the environment. Yes. But even if we put every man, woman, and child in America driving 10,000 miles a year in my truck, which is on the worst side for emissions, we'd still only produce 1.9 gigatons, which is a little over a quarter of what our tankers are producing every year. So why should we compromise, and why should we pay more, work more, drive more, make it more difficult for us to function as a country just to protect our environment when it's clear that we're not requiring tankers to meet emissions requirements? Why should we go through all this? And that brings me to my conclusion here. If our emissions outputs do relatively little on the global scene, why should we compromise? So all Americans need to make it a point to contact their representatives, congressmen, and other local politicians to protest and repeal changes on our policies to emissions. Thank you for listening.